In October 1781, the third son of George III of England, the future William IV, was a 13-year-old midshipman in the Royal Navy. Prince William Henry, as he was called, was under the command of Rear Admiral Digby, whose squadron had been dispatched to America. The British government believed that Prince William's presence in New York would bolster Loyalist morale. On his arrival, he was duly received with great appreciation and invited to a succession of dinners, concerts, and other social engagements. Meanwhile, George Washington received a proposal from his agents to kidnap both Prince and Admiral. The Prince could be held for political ransom, while the mere success of a venture would demoralize the British and the Loyalists. Washington approved the plan, subject to the utmost caution being taken with the victim's safety.
What a black deed.
This is based on true, so this is a true story, by the way.
Oh, so we're all gonna die. Damn it.
And let me fix the tokens that are here. Alright. So this is Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia, where some of you are currently stationed, and where Miss Bordeaux has been summoned, so to speak. In this old fort that overlooks the river, a man stands in a makeshift office waiting for your arrival. You've been carted here with horse and buggy, all aboard one wagon, and feel free to roleplay amongst yourself.
Who is the ranking person here?
That would be Angus Macduff as a lieutenant.
Oh dear. All right. Well, Angus is just gonna look over these people, size them up. Has he worked with any of them before?
No. And there's a woman amongst you as well.
Yeah.
And you would notice. Actually, let's make a roll. Let's make a for Angus. Politics roll.
Okay.
Yep.
Oops. So I'll ask the young lady just making polite conversation if she's going to meet her husband.
Unfortunately, my husband is passed.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. And he touches his head where his cap would be if it was polite to wear a cap in the coach. My deepest sympathies, ma'am.
I thank you very much, sir. But I am on my way to meet General Washington.
Well, that's quite an honor.
Yes, it is.
In what capacity would you might be meeting him?
Well,
if I may be so bold.
You may. Well, I have been summoned. So I'm intrigued to find out exactly what I will be here for. What about you, if I may be so bold as well?
I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to disclose that information, ma'am. I'm sure you understand.
Oh, of course.
Bart Wickens kind of leans in. Oh, there's been whispers. There's been rumors. Very important people in town.
Angus says we don't want to give mind to any rumors or whispers now, do we?
And Bart Wickens leans back and throws his right arm over the cart. He's a weathered-looking man. Looks like he's seen too many late nights on the town with dark circles under his eyes, but his His hands are those of a laborer, thick fingers, meaty paws and wrists. It looks like they could wield a cleaver as well as strangle a man's neck. He says, No. Wouldn't want to give any credence to any rumors about. But there are only so many reasons that such a motley crew be riding in a wagon into this here place to meet with a good general, I dare say.
When you say motley, you see Angus, his lips kind of curl. He doesn't seem pleased with that characterization.
And he kind of he notices that and looks over at the woman there.
She smiles kind of meekly back, both her hands folded into her lap. She still has a ring on her finger, though earlier she did say that her husband has passed. I do think that, though there are rumors, sometimes rumors do make out to be true, and sometimes it is good to keep an ear on the ground, no?
I'll be mindful to mind my mouth for now. He looks at the others in the wagon.
Eliza's sitting there just listening intently. Well, I think that the reason I'm here to talk to George Washington because my Ethan Allen sent me himself. But I think we have a common enemy to fight, and thought the British would be much better off and give our own Republic of Vermont.
James is, while all this is happening, he's kind of got his eyes scanning. He never stops. He just keeps looking around. He's got kind of a keen eye, and he definitely looks like he's seen his share of fighting, and he looks like he's from a hardy stock. He doesn't say much, just here and there gives kind of a grunt, just a as he, like I said, as he continues to scan and survey the area and his surroundings.
Angus has already lost interest in the fellow passengers and just looks out the window during the ride.
Eventually the cart stops as you make your way up this hill towards this fort. You can see it in the distance as this trail is somewhat winding outside of Philadelphia proper. It comes to a halt and the door is open, and standing out there is a Continental soldier, and he just kind of opens the door and steps aside to allow you to exit.
Angus will jump out first so that he can assist the lady as a proper officer would do.
And Michelle will stand up and step out of the carriage, taking Macduff's hand there as she exits. Thank you very much, sir.
Think nothing of it.
And James won't really waste any time getting off or out of the carriage. He gets out immediately, puts his cap on. Sorry. And again, he's kind of looking up and down, back and forth, down every which way.
And Angus just says to Michelle, give my best wishes to the general when you see him, eh?
Oh, I will, though. Considering that the rest of the party in here seems to be visiting with the general, I can only assume that you are as well. Only makes sense.
He just smiles.
And Bart just unceremoniously exits the wagon, hops down. The wagon gives a little creak as he steps to the side, and as the woman exits, he kind of tips his hat to her.
She'll bow her head to him.
As all the pleasantries seem to be concluded as you're filed off this wagon, the soldier nods and says, "This way. The Excellency awaits." And he turns and kind of marches down this cobblestone path and takes a wide turn into flat stairs that go, open stairway that goes down into underneath like a stone structure. So you're basically inside the fort as he leads you through. You notice that there's a rampart above you with canyon fixtures pointing out into the river, and men manning them idly as you walk through a hallway and make several turns in kind of a almost haphazard kind of way, and then you finally turn into this makeshift office. You see standing at a desk this man who wears the lapel of the rank of a major. He looks at you up from various papers at a desk in front of him. You notice there is no one else in the room currently, and he eyes kind of swings across all of you and says, "Ah, you've arrived." And he kind
Macduff will stand to attention and salute.
He returns your salute almost haphazardly, quickly, and looks back down at his papers and says, "Yes, this will have to do. I'm Major Talmadge, Benjamin Talmadge, head of intelligence for Washington." And you notice there's 5 seats in front of the desk, and he kind of waves his hand towards them to get you to sit.
Yeah, Macduff looks uncomfortable as he eyes the other 4.
Yeah, Bart looks to Angus for direction. Is it okay to sit down?
Liza just goes and sits down.
And Michelle will take the front and center seat.
Yeah.
James will make his way over to a chair, but he kind of stands behind it with both hands resting on the back. Think I'll stand. Thank you.
Yeah, Macduff just looks at Wickens and he pauses a moment and then goes and kind of takes a seat.
Yeah, Talmadge
But his
realizes
face
you're...
wooden.
Yeah, he realizes everybody's hesitation. He's like, "If I wanted you to stand, I would tell you to stand. This mission is off the record anyway."
Bart nods his head. Thank you, sir. It was a long ride in, and we'll have a seat next to Angus.
Talmadge himself sits and says, "I have a particularly interesting and an important task for the 5 of you." Yes, 5 of you. Mrs. Barreau will be assisting. As I said, this is not typical military action. You see, the Prince William is in New York. And quite simply, His Excellency has approved a plan to abduct the prince and bring him here to Philadelphia. And he kind of looks at your reactions to see what you're kind of thinking.
Elijah's gonna be kind of wide-eyed and waiting for more.
Bart leans forward slightly.
Angus is listening, but his face is completely impassive.
And Michelle kind of clear her throat a little bit. If you do not mind me asking, how do you expect these four men and me to abduct the prince?
He's making his rounds in New York, going to concerts, taverns, all sorts of political functions. I have heard through rumors that he moves around without guard most of the time. And so, that is where you come in. You know New York. You have contacts there.
Bart
where you-
nods.
He looks at Bart and says, and also you, a man that can move about in the night unheard. Hmm?
Bart nods. Yeah. I used to operate a butchery there until I got into a scuffle with someone with connections. Well, next thing I know, the redcoats come knocking at my door, and I'm no longer a butcher, and I wear this nice hat. He gives you again a little tip of his hat.
Angus says there'll be no butchery on this mission, Mr. Wickens.
Of course not. Of course not. Not until we're done. And then we'll feast.
Hopefully not. That is correct. You only will engage the enemy unless you are absolutely forced to. Else, our ruse is over.
Macduff will address Talmadge, and he'll say, these men are all soldiers, and what you're proposing is a very dangerous mission.
It is.
Quite possible none of us will make it back alive. Might I inquire as to why the widow here is required?
Because she knows New York like no one else. She has the contacts like no one else. High society contacts.
I don't exactly fancy being responsible for the life and safety of a woman on what really amounts to a military operation.
I'm afraid to tell you, Lieutenant, that you will be hung as a spy if you're caught. You're not going in. Perhaps. Any one of you are...
Folks won't care one way or another if it's a woman or a man. And he kind of looks at Michelle pointedly to drive that home to see her reaction.
She does not seem to be very fazed by it. At this point, I've already lost what I care about, so it is not that big of a deal. I'd rather serve the country here than anything.
Talmadge lifts a hand and he's like, and I want to make a point. Any of you are free to decline this assignment. This is not a military action, as I said, Lieutenant. This is working for intelligence. You have your own units. I only ask you this because your commanding officers have, well, recommended you. And he looks to Elijah and he says, we even have a member of the Republic of Vermont with us. This action is wide-ranging consequences if we succeed.
Angus clears his throat, and he said, I recommend each of you to listen to the man's words. I've worked intelligence. I've seen men hanged as spies. Think long and hard before you agree.
I will say the only thing is, if one of us does declare not to go through with the mission at this point, what do you plan on doing with that person as they know about the mission?
That person will stay here in Philadelphia until the mission is completed.
That makes sense.
As my guess.
Angus nods with approving.
Bart gives a crooked smile and says, "For one, Major, you can count me in. I'll do what I can, and I don't have aught to lose."
James looks at him. Well, seems how you brought me down here, I don't see anything wrong with shooting me a few them redcoats, if need be. But as far as getting the information, I don't know that I'm your best man, but I will do what I can to assist in any way.
You each have skills that could be important to this mission, varied. If you must shoot, then you will. Let's hope that's not the case.
Well, I'll be doing my public great deed if I have to kill me some redcoats. I'm not afraid to die in the fight for them.
Let us hope it does not come to that. But I mean...
Angus asks, am I the only one who's worked a similar operation in the past of an intelligence nature?
That's correct, Lieutenant. That is why you're going to lead this sortie.
He frowns and says, then I suppose I am volunteered.
I suppose so.
And James will just look down at McDuff, just briefly glance him up and look him up and down, not necessarily sizing him up, just kind of trying to gauge him as a man, and try to, I guess, get an understanding of his experience. You know, judging by the weathering and how he carries himself.
How do you carry yourself?
So far, he has behaved very professionally. But you definitely see that there is a guarded nature about the way he looks at you. A kind of there is a facade of some kind. Though it's not entirely clear what that is.
He just kind of peeps up a little bit, saying, I do believe that man right there will serve you well.
Talmadge nods. That's why you've all been summoned here and asked to complete this very important task. I will be clear that the prince is not to be harmed. Is that clear?
It is.
Bart nods.
Most definitely.
Angus says, no harm will come to the boy. I will cancel the mission if his life is endangered.
Not to scratch on his little head.
Child murderers.
No, we
Nor
are not.
regicides. If the boy is to inherit, we will have murdered a future king.
I don't believe that unless his older brothers die, but regardless, this could be a very big political boon for us if we do capture him and bring him here. It can put pressure on the British to end this war.
Macduff just smiles. But he does not appear convinced.
So, if you have observation, go ahead and roll it. If not, you will be rolling. If not, just roll perception -5 versus perception -5.
So how do we roll it negatives?
So it should be, let's see.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. If you don't have it and you click on perception, you would just we would just know that. So, for instance, you would just -5 off your perception.
Okay.
The old school way.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you had to do math.
Yeah.
So
No
for-
macros, so
In
Hmm?
GURPS, if it's equal, is it a pass or fail?
it is a pass. So those who succeeded, the back part of the room is dimly lit and covered in shadows, and you see that there's somebody actually sitting back there, and the creak of the chair, you can hear it as there's movement.
So
Angus
did
won't
everybody
try
pass?
to obviously stare, but he will, while kind of removing his hat and brushing his hair back in a casual motion, he will just kind of glance back to try to get a quick look to see if he can see who that is.
Elijah's gonna stare.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone passed or not, though.
I passed.
It looks like everybody passed. Yeah.
Michelle did not, but
Everybody but Michelle.
Yeah.
so everybody, Michelle, eventually, the person stands up and kind of walks forward, and he's got his hat under his arm, and he says, "I'm not
As
sure
soon as I
about
see
this,
that, I stand
Talmadge."
to attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Didn't
No, you're fine. "I'm not sure about this, Talmadge." And Talmadge just looks at him, and His Excellency looks at all of you and says, "Like the Major said, not a hair on his head harmed."
Seeing George Washington, Elijah will do something they didn't do, recognizes authority. Stands up in attention.
Yeah, Macduff, anyone who hasn't stood up, Macduff is glowering at you. And if you still aren't on your feet after a moment, he'll tell you to get to your feet.
Yeah, James will stand right up into attention.
Yeah, Bart would be up quickly. New Yorker.
Yeah, Michelle will be surprised. She's the only one who didn't spot him. And she'll kind of get up and bow there.
He walks up to Michelle and extends his hand to take hers, and as he does, he bows and says, "Mademoiselle, are you sure you wish to do this? I have great fears for your safety."
Well, I appreciate your concerns for my safety, sir. I am very honored that you would invite me here, and I feel like it would be a missed opportunity if I did not take part.
He takes a deep breath and steps back and looks at Talmadge and looks to the five of you. "Very well then. Talmadge, proceed." And he looks to the five of you again and just says, "Good luck. I hope to see you again."
Macduff salutes, but it's not a crisp, eager salute.
Elijah will salute with a little grin on his face.
His Excellency turns and departs from into a opening a door in the back and heads off into the fort somewhere. Talmadge watches him go and then turns back to the rest of you again and says, "Very well. Specifics then. You'll leave on the morrow for New York. We need to decide how you're going to get into the city."
Macduff says, "I suppose the lady would know that best. That's why she's here, is it not?"
It is one of the reasons. I have already formulated some ideas. You can tell me which. Your choice, of course, but there are two ways. We can come from Connecticut, and you can go into the harbor over the Sound on a boat. It would be dangerous. You would need to do it at night. You would have to avoid detection from men at the harbor, both Loyalists and potential redcoats. Or you could take the ferry and then try to walk straight in. They do require passes. We have some forged passes for each of you, but they seem to be on edge now that the prince is in town.
Elijah will pipe up. Well, it would be best if we don't put all our eggs in one basket.
Macduff says, and where will we be quartered in New York, and as whom?
You will have to find lodging. Your passes have your names. They are not known to the enemy. It is best to conceal a lie with the truth, if possible.
I agree. If our fake passes cannot stand up to a cursory inspection as we get into the city, I doubt they'll hold up to any further inspections once we are in. He will look to Michelle and say, have you any thoughts as to how we might quarter ourselves away from most eyes without causing undue attention to ourselves?
So, the prince is in town. Well, with my connections, I might be able to see what activities are going on and maybe see if we can get an invite or two. Be there for legitimate purposes. Therefore, our covers are sound, and we are not just entering the city for no reason. No?
He nods approvingly. Well thought, madam. Or mademoiselle now, perhaps. That's how you French say it.
Pardon?
Do you say mademoiselle now that you're a widow? Sorry, I'm not familiar with...
Unfortunately, I do.
Tongue.
You may refer to me as Mademoiselle Bureau. I also do know that there is probably someone that I could talk to that will provide us with lodging.
Excellent. Angus says, then I propose we get a hold of these invitations and we'll all make our way in separately. We don't want to go in like a big group. That would cause too much suspicion.
Yeah, far too much, I believe. I do believe the good Macduff here is correct.
Talmadge reaches under a piece of paper and pulls out 5 folded also pieces of paper that are tied closed with strings and just puts them in front of you. Your passes, created by my good friend Mr. Sackett. They should stand up to weather.
And Michelle will take at least hers.
All right.
Bart takes his, puts it in his breast pocket, and gives a salute.
Macduff says, if any of you are caught on the way in, make sure you hold out for 2 days. The British will likely be rough with you, trying to find out why you are there.
Bart gets ready to say something smart, but then chokes back his speech and swallows his tongue, and you can see his Adam's apple move up and down, and his eyes go back and forth as he's seen what happens to traders in New York City. So he casts his gaze towards the floorboards and just nods.
Talmadge pipes up and says, and it's not just the redcoats, of course. loyalist to the crown.
They're worse than the redcoats, sir.
I will agree with you there, Lieutenant. And we all know that the British have no fondness for the French. He looks to Michelle and says, but her presence shouldn't be too alarming, and we need her contacts.
I will do my best not to speak very much around the British. Hopefully that will help.
Perhaps. Very well. I have quarters here for the night, and I have arranged quarters for each of you. You soldiers, you will bunk 2 by 2. The lady, you have your own room. I'm sorry it is not in more hospitable locations than a soldier's fort.
Have you suitable civilian clothing for us? Are we expected to provide it ourselves? Did not come expecting such.
Yeah, he nods. Yes, in each of your bunks you will have something suitable for your trip. I cannot say it is overly much. You will need to decide what you need in the city. I cannot give you over much money either. It would seem suspicious if you were going and spending money flippantly.
Macduff smiles. I heartily agree, Mr. Talmadge.
Very well. On the morning when the sun rises, you will depart. You have another wagon that will take you closer to the city and then drop you off somewhere a few miles out.
What are our covers all sort of like farmer type folk? Would we be expected to arrive on horseback? Would it make sense that we wander in on foot?
They are mostly they are farmers. There is very specific for Michelle, obviously, that she's a citizen of New York and she's been given pass to go to and fro. The rest of you are farmers, yes.
Okay.
And he says, and yes, feel free to take the wagon that you will be given. And we can put some cabbages in there.
We may need that wagon to secure the boy. Are there any thoughts, Mr. Talmadge, to how we might get the boy out of New York? Or is that left to us to decide?
Going out the front door doesn't seem like a great idea. I suggest finding a rowboat and coming over the Sound. Once you get to Connecticut, we'll have men there to protect you, but you have to get out. Perhaps if you can get him through the front gate somehow, then very well, but it seems unlikely.
Do we have an itinerary of the how he will travel, or are we expected to find the prince ourselves?
Yes, you will have to find him. You have not been able to get information exactly on his whereabouts, but as I said, the reports are that he is traveling unarmed and unguarded for the most part, and visiting taverns, theaters, other political events, parties, that sort of thing. You should be able to find where he's going, perhaps from one of your contacts, and then catch him when he's unaware and bring him home.
I doubt he'll consider this home, sir. But
No. Do you know how old he is?
13.
Okay.
Well, sir, if I may, this sounds like a bit of a wild goose chase. And I just hope that any information we've collected thus far proves valid and is actually holds any merit. Elsewise, everything we do is all in vain. We just are wandering about. How do we know when to pull out?
That is your own judgment.
Yeah, Macduff just smiles and says, I see you're new to this game, Mr. Matthews. There are no certainties in this line of work. We will have to make our best judgments.
Very well. I suppose if that's how it must be, then that's how it must be.
This is intelligence. You work on rumors from sources that you can trust, and hopefully their information is still good. That's why you need to move at first light and not take too long getting to New York.
Do we know anything about how long he plans to stay in New York?
I don't believe he'll be leaving until the spring at least. And it is
So,
October currently, so...
Oh, well, longer than we have. Very
Yes.
well.
Any other questions?
Bart doesn't have any questions.
Neither does
Stands up.
Elijah.
Knowing the full gravity of the situation, he's mostly quiet and is wringing his hands a little bit.
I would maybe like to confer with the rest of you to see if we can maybe come up with a plan before we head out.
Macduff just nods.
Yeah,
I think we have
yeah.
no further questions for you, Major.
I'll be here if you need me. And he stands and
Yep,
he says,
he's-
I can leave the room to you. It's all yours. And he begins shuffling his papers into a slipcase and bundles them up and turns and walks out the same door that George Washington left.
Angus waits till he goes. And then as soon as the door closes, you can see he breathes a heavy sigh and does not look pleased.
James, having noticed this, just turns to Angus. Not exactly what you expected, I'd wager.
I expect nothing, but no, I did not imagine that we would do such, embark on such an endeavor. But I am not the architect of such plans. I merely carry them out.
Well, I believe that subterfuge is a folly. However, if it hastens the British leaving,
It depends on the aim and what we expect to get from it, I suppose.
what I expect is the British to leave, and the Great Republic of Vermont will be left alone.
We
You
can
can
only hope.
see Angus looks like he's about to speak, and then he just kind of shuts his mouth.
So as you are in charge of the operation, do you have any input into what we should do, or would you like to maybe hear some of my advice for us going forward for now?
He just puts his hand up like the please do go ahead.
Good. So I do not know exactly all of your experience with lies and deceit and this kind of thing, intelligence operations and that kind of thing. I am not very experienced, but in my at least experience with a society, as long as you act like you belong, then you will be accepted wherever you go. So, what I suggest is to not have any hesitation when you encounter any issues and just act like you should be there.
Well, that's going to be a bit of a problem, isn't it, if we're farmers invited to high society functions?
It is true, but at least the passes are just to get into the city, no?
Might need those passes to show who we are once we're in the city.
That's true. But if I am able to maybe secure some invitations to some more upper echelon events that are going on within the city, then it might be a bit more difficult with farmers' clothes for you all to get in.
My thoughts exactly.
I am wondering
Rub
if I
elbows with the young princeling, then I think we're going to have some finer garb available.
I will see if I can maybe speak to anyone regarding that issue. And maybe see if we can find some higher and finer clothes for you all.
Bart's kind of listening and says, not all of us are farmers. I frequented New York for many years before I was shut out.
Our passes say we are farmers, Wiccans.
All of them say that.
Mm-hmm. Except hers.
Well, even as a farmer, I've been invited to the governor's ball in Vermont before.
Have you?
It's not Vermont, this is New York.
New York is an entirely different animal, Mr. Jones, as you will come to see.
Oh, I've been in the New York area before. In fact, I fought some of the Yorkers.
Yes, I see that the politicians and such in this area, they talk out of both sides of their mouths. It's a bit unnerving.
Do they
People
not
here
do
that-
that in your area, Mr. Matthews?
Oh, I believe it is most certainly everywhere. However, I've mostly found here especially. I mean no offense, of course. I'm only trying to prepare and warn everyone for what may lie ahead.
And just so people who might not know, Philadelphia is the capital of the United States currently. Or the Continental Congress is in Philadelphia. So you are in what would be today Washington, D.C. Well,
As close to that as we can get.
mhm.
Yeah, Macduff says to Michelle, how certain are you of your contacts in the city that they won't immediately betray us?
That is a good question.
Our lives depend on it, so I do think it a good question, yes.
How can you be certain that nobody will betray us? I mean,
I didn't ask her if she was certain, I asked her how sure she is. This is always a matter of degrees.
Well, I have known some of these people for quite a while, and a few of them do owe me favors, and I am happy to owe them favors in regards to this. I will only make sure the ones we associate with are trustworthy. I do not want to endanger all your lives, nor mine.
The
And I do
fewer
not wish
people we
to-
have to trust, the safer we'll be.
Oh, but of
Have to
course.
be careful about the extravagance of our plans.
I will say I'm not, if you are implying, and I am sure you're not, I am not going to go, how do you say, blabbing my mouth to these people, telling them exactly what our plan is and why we need these invitations. Actually, Michelle looks a little bit offended, maybe at what he was implying. I
Imagine,
am not so stupid, if
Imagine
that's what you're implying. Oh, sorry.
in Michelle's defense, I'd be like, there are plenty Benedict Arnolds around, I'm sure, and I'm sure that Michelle is thinking about her safety more than everyone's concerned about, her own, right? And so,
Are you, Mademoiselle? Are you concerned with your safety? He looks at her very closely as she answers.
Personally, I would rather not be taken in by British soldiers. It is not the ideal way for me to go, so yes, I am highly concerned with my safety. Therefore, I will make sure to be careful, make sure which information I give out and which information I leave out when I am talking to my contacts.
Well, rightly so. I believe it is foolish not to fear for oneself, and only a fool would do so. So I believe that all of us...
A fool or one who has no care for their own continued existence. But Macduff just looks away.
The other thing maybe we should address is, at least for the mission, to be honest with each other. And she kind of looks at Macduff pointedly. Considering we were all traveling in the same carts, and you would not admit as to why you were here, even though it was, I would say, how do you say, plainly obvious that we're all going to the same location. If we could all, at least for now, be completely honest with the things we are doing, therefore the mission will go smoothly and nothing will be miscommunicated.
Macduff smiles and just says, I bow to your superior wisdom, madam.
Well, thank you. It is high words coming from one such as you.
You're not entirely sure he meant that.
And she's
Completely
French, so she took it honestly.
Yeah.
Got anything
says-
else?
He says, if I've learned one thing, it's that there's no point in over planning without more information. I don't know that we can make any headway until we get there and see what our situation is. I recommend we retire and get some sleep. Prepare
Busy.
for the day. It will be a long one.
Indeed.
Hold on, man. Madam, as well, would you like an escort to your quarters?
That would be
Angus says, I will escort the lady. But thank you, sir.
No. See, you may be lieutenant in the Continental Army, but you're not my lieutenant. I'm only here to aid you.
Michelle will hold back a laugh.
Please bear that in mind, Lieutenant Macduff.
I will be mindful of my rank. And he nods. I trust you will be as well.
Oh, I am forever mindful that I don't hold a rank.
So may I ask who is escorting me to my room, or shall I walk alone?
Angus is preparing to escort you.
As is proper, the lieutenant begins to escort the lady to her quarters, finding it fairly easy as it's the only one that doesn't look like a soldier's barracks.
On the way, if there is an out-of-the-way location where other people won't overhear, he stops and addresses her.
Sure.
He says, Mademoiselle, I am aware of your loss and your prior statement that you are willing to undertake this mission because you feel you have nothing to lose. And he says, I've worked with men before, with a similar attitude, and I am hesitant to risk the lives and safety of all of us by putting ourselves in the hands of someone who may be more reckless or willing to take deadly chances than we ought. Can you assure me that you have no such death wish?
Michelle kind of looks to the side for a moment, then looks back at Angus, improving her posture, putting her shoulders back, and kind of addressing him, looking him in the eye. Sir, I wish to say the only recklessness that my behavior will have is accepting this mission. I do not wish to put any of your lives in danger, and as such, I take this mission with the utmost care, the utmost secrecy, and I will be extremely careful to make sure that all of you and me will survive this, as much as relying on all of us to accomplish this mission, and I do not wish anything to endanger the outcome. Is that an acceptable answer, sir?
It is. And he nods. I thank you for your candor.
Of course.
He just turns to continue escorting her without another word.
Okay.
And when they arrive at the door, he holds it open for her and takes his hat off and wishes her a good evening.
And she'll give a small wave and enter her room and close the door after her.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Elijah?
So tell me, Elijah, how are things in the south? I mean, tell me, James.
Talking to yourself?
Yeah, apparently.
Well, you know, the South is as the South is. Plantations. But more recently, the war has spread, and constant we're under constant heat.
I know you down south, Cornwallis learned a thing or two from you guys.
Yes, we have our experience with Cornwallis. I fought against him a few times, perhaps, and that's sort of what brought me here.
Bart,
No.
do you have anything to say to these guys talking about the South and Cornwallis and such? Feel free to interject. Bo?
Sorry, hang on.
No, you're fine.
Baby.
No, you're good.
I gotta go FK for just a second, like
Oh, you're fine. Okay.
minutes.
Yep, you're fine. Yeah, you guys are talking, and eventually it's getting late, and everybody bunks gets to their bunk and falls asleep in whatever manner they do or they don't in nervousness. But the night passes and the next day comes. The next few days are spent on 2 wagons heading north to New York. And you arrive on the outskirts of the area, and the drivers basically dismount and leave the wagons with you and just wait for your kind of instructions. They're as far as you know, to lead you, but they look to Angus for their orders specifically.
Yep, we don't want them anymore. Once they're done, I just dismiss them and say we'll be taking those wagons.
Yes, sir. Good luck.
He almost salutes and stops himself.
Yep, and they're dressed they're dressed in plain clothes as well. They're not dressed in military attire at all. And they just they begin to hoof it back, just walking off down the street to the south, down the road to the south, leaving there with 2 wagons. You do have the option to keep your armaments, which each of you have a musket. I believe Angus also has a pistol, flintlock pistol. So, first things first, what are you going to do with those? Are you going to try to sneak them in? You have stuff in the wagon there. You can put them underneath. You have both are filled with cabbages.
I feel the pistol can probably be smuggled in. The muskets, that is very dangerous. They'll be looking for people smuggling weapons in, I would bet.
Is there a way to kind of hide them within the boards of the wagon or underneath the carriage?
You could try that.
Is there a role for that?
Angus says the boy's not to be harmed, and if we can help it, we're not intending to take other lives as well. If it comes to muskets, we've failed already.
And, Bart's kind of halfway beneath, trying to stow these muskets underneath the carriage and like bracket them up against the struts, and he kind of comes out from underneath the wagon and says, "Indeed, I suppose you're right.
So
if the musket balls fly and the smoke rises, well, I suppose we're done for it."
I'll call the 2 men back and say, get them to take the muskets. We won't be needing these. I say you'll be needing these more than we will.
They nod. And they reach their hand out to. They take Bart and Angus's muskets, and then the other one reaches his hands out to Elijah and James.
Elijah will hand it right over, seeing the wisdom and Macduff's thinking.
Yeah, James won't necessarily hesitate, but he just looks at it and then looks back to Macduff and says, "Well, sir, do you think that it might be wise to have someone posted just in case?"
You mean put it closer to where we're going?
Yeah, exactly.
Elijah will look over at Lieutenant Macduff. He has a point.
But it's a risk if it's found. If it's found, that will cause some concern.
That is, sir, if it's found. However, this particular person doesn't necessarily have to attend. While it may not be wise to split the party entirely, it may, as I said, be wise to at least have something stashed nearby where it may be accessible in case something does occur.
Well, I believe all the action's going to occur in the city, Mr. Matthews. and I doubt we'll have opportunity to come out here to scrounge a rifle.
And I'm plenty thinking that if it push comes to shove and we need to get rifles, something tells me that some of those red coats will drop. So
That is a very, very good point, Mr. Jones.
We will take what we must use. But you are a spy now, Mr. Matthews, not a soldier. You must start thinking like a spy.
Indeed, Mr. McDuff. Indeed.
You can address me as Lieutenant. He just smiles. At least until we get into the city.
I was going to say, good sir, I'm practicing as to not call you Lieutenant, if that is acceptable.
He touches his farmer's hat in a touche motion.
You also have a saber, Angus, if you wanted to keep that. That's another thing.
That would certainly not go fitting with the.
No, it would not. No.
He will reluctantly swallow his own pill and hand over his saber to the soldiers as well, and say, "Take good care of her for me, please."
They nod, and they look a little awkward handling it because that's clearly a officer's weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would expect no less.
Yeah, and then I think each of you also have knives and stuff, which I'm not gonna make you get rid of. But Bart, you also have something. I'm sure you're gonna keep that, right?
My grub.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Pack it away in my pocket.
All right. So,
For cutting cheese.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Cheesy necks. You leave, or the soldiers leave you behind, kind of going back to two horses they had stowed down the road a bit with 4 muskets and a saber, and
my pistol. I'm not going to try to smuggle that in.
You're not gonna take it in.
There's no reason to. If it's found, then the game's up already.
Okay.
Not worth the risk.
So you give them your pistol as well.
Yeah.
So how are you going to go about this? You know, Michelle definitely knows that in about a mile or two, we'll say, you're probably a couple miles. You're safe enough outside the city that you'll come to where there's a ferry crossing. And then you'll need to go around with the wagons, which is typical to bring your cabbages into the city. There will be a large gate there at the entrance to where all the islands kind of all meet up, right? And that's the main entryway to I guess it would be south. Or no, it's not south, east of New York, and that's the main foot entrance.
All right, so we'll go in 2 groups, 1 in each wagon. We'll space out the timing by about half an hour. Since Mr. Wickens also knows New York to some extent, that is correct, is it not?
That is correct, sir.
You shall lead one expedition, and Ms. Bureau will lead the other.
Mademoiselle Bureau. Close.
Indeed. So, I propose that Mademoiselle Bureau take one of you as her supposed brother or husband, and the other another relative in that wagon, and then the 2 men in another. Mademoiselle Bureau, choose your husband. He smiles.
Pick me.
No, it's not that kind of smile.
Let's see. So, Bart's going in the other one, correct?
Correct.
Just kind of.
And you must also choose destination for us. But first, the matter of your husband.
She'll kind of look down, see if any of the other gentlemen have a ring on.
You guys tell me.
I don't think Wickham would have a ring on at this point. He's a pretty young guy with who lost his small businesses in New York, so he probably never even was profitable enough to get a wife.
I'm not sure that wedding bands were all that much of a
Were they not?
thing.
Or a
at the
thing.
No
time.
idea.
I'm just kind of guessing.
Maybe, probably not for the poor. No.
Yeah.
There's just a tan line there where I took it off.
And certainly, men is not for men at this time either. That's
yeah.
late invention.
I would go ahead and roll just straight IQ, Michelle.
All right.
Michelle.
One sec. Straight IQ.
Yeah, you wonder if you're dressed kind of in your normal clothing, your traveling clothing, which is still pretty fine compared to what everyone else is wearing. You're wondering that someone posing as your husband might be a little far-fetched.
Oh, we're that bad?
Well, you're not that bad, but I mean, comparatively,
We're not that good.
it's a comparison thing.
Yeah. All right.
She looks down her nose at us.
She's in her Sunday best. Is it Sunday, perchance?
Sure.
All
Oh,
right.
perfect.
Well, then of course she would be dressed well on a Sunday.
She'll kind of look over the men. Based on the way that I look, and I guess no offense to any of you, I do not think that anyone would believe that any of you are my husband. So,
Macduff
what I
smiles.
would suggest is two of you come with me and either maybe act like out of town siblings. That might be the best.
Country bumpkins, perhaps?
Sure. If that is your word for it.
Sweet.
So, whichever two of you would like to ride with me, I have no opinion.
Elijah will look at Macduff. Well, Lieutenant, maybe you should go first. If there's going to be trouble, the better off that either it starts with you or you're on the other side already.
I suppose. Very well, I will go with Mademoiselle. Who's with Wiccans?
I'll go with Wickens.
Fine.
Elijah, I couldn't have picked a better cousin.
And that just leaves me, the country bumpkin. Or non-country bumpkin.
All right. I'll sit next to the lady on the board, and that leaves Mr. Matthews to ride in the hay in the back, or on whatever things are in there.
Buried amongst the cabbages.
Yes.
So you push the wagon forward, and you're
Well,
getting...
we also have, before we get
Mhm.
going, Michelle and Bart have to agree on a mutually known location where we can meet up. Something they
Makes
both can find with ease, and where we could wait without drawing too much attention.
The market?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's all kinds of shops, and it's fairly cosmopolitan. There's taverns, there's but markets. Just there's probably a market square. I couldn't specifically say what that would look like.
Maybe a market square or a
Sounds
tavern.
perfect. Many people. We can wait there without drawing suspicion, and of course, Mr. Wickens will well know where that is. So that's a good plan. Let's do that.
Okay. So who's going first? Angus and Michelle?
Yes.
And James is going with which group? Is he going
James,
with
That was
Elijah?
James is going with
Elijah and
Okay.
Bart.
Oh, Elijah or Bart or Angus?
No, he's going with Angus.
Okay.
Okay, Angus. All right. So you
He's
you're
our retarded child.
a little old.
We are married.
He doesn't speak much.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so you head up this hill and go over, passing some farms and homesteads outside of New York, and just kind of pass them peacefully. Dogs bark, people are tending their fields and whatnot. Nobody really pays you any mind besides casting you a glance every once in a while. And eventually you see the thick walls of New York and the many, many, many homes in the distance. Standing outside are at least 2 redcoats, kind of checking people's passes as they walk through. And as it's turned for your wagon, their wagon goes ahead of you. He kind of walks up to the horse, puts a hand on the bridle, and looks up at the bench. Good day. Papers, please.
Macduff just nods, kind of doffs his hat just a little bit, and kind of fumbles around for his papers like he's not used to having to kind of do this sort of thing, but he pulls out his papers and just says, "Here you are, sir."
And he just takes them and begins to look at them and... Cabbages. And he kind of like looks over your shoulder
and he says, "You have a problem with cabbages?"
no problem with cabbages. And you notice he doesn't have an English accent, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of like walks and looks
That's
at the
good, because they don't like Irishmen, so.
He turns around and says, didn't know there was any cabbages coming in today.
Angus says, "We sell them when we can. We're not picky. We can't afford to be."
He just kind of scratches his chin and looks to the other redcoat and says, very well. Go ahead. And he hands over the paper back to Angus, and he reaches his hand out to Michelle to take her papers.
And she'll nod and kind of reach into her outfit and take out her papers and hand them over.
He reads them. He's like,
Angus takes them from her and says, "Let me hand them to him. I'll hand it to him, cousin." And hands it to her.
yeah, he looks at he's like, Barreau? What kind of name is Barreau? Obviously mispronouncing it.
Macduff says, "It's her name, of course. What kind of question is that?"
And he looks at you and he's like, are you Irish, Macduff? And Barreau, what is Barreau? Is that Irish? It doesn't sound Irish.
She just nods, not really saying anything.
He says, "What do you know of Irish? Are you Irish? You don't sound it."
No, I'm a colonist.
Well, I'm a colonist too, but I'm an Irishman from home. It's my home now, but...
He kind of turns and spits. And then he says, well, the GM says, give me fast talk, Angus. With it's gonna be at a +2, so that's good. The TN is a +2. Okay. He just looks back at you and
Fast draw.
Fast draw.
fast draw.
Oh, shoot.
You rolled a 9.
I
What's your
saw
TM?
fast. Yeah.
Reaches down for the pistol. Not there.
He's knifing him.
I'm gonna shoot this guy. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I have a 12 in fast
Okay.
talk.
Yeah. So he just kind of hands back the papers and he looks over at James and he's like, "What's your story?"
Sir, I've got no story. I was just here to help with the cabbages.
Your accent just went from James to Francis, by the way.
I know.
Angus,
I was trying to.
Angus says he's just my stupid farmhand.
Apologize, sir. I don't know much. I just deal with the cabbages.
And Angus says, no, you don't, do you? So stick to your cabbages, boy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Angus just looks at the red coat or the guy apologetically, like, I'm sorry for how stupid he is.
Go ahead and do a fast talk.
Again?
No, James. I'm talking about James.
Okay.
So like slow talk.
Oh man.
Plus 2 to your roll. Do you not have it?
I don't have it.
All right.
Keep your mouth shut, boy.
See. Fast talk is. Where is it?
Consulting the sheet.
Okay, IQ minus 5. So it'll be IQ minus 3 because you have your.
Oh dear.
Alright, I'm just gonna roll it straight and then -3, so 7.
7 plus. No, so that's 7 and then plus 2 and 9 versus 9. You got it.
Oh,
Right.
nice.
Ooh.
Or actually, you missed it. Minus
Yeah, that's what I was
5
saying.
plus
You
2,
missed it.
7. 9 versus 7.
Right.
He just like he looks at you and then he walks back, kind of looking the papers over, and kind of goes over to the other red coat and kind of shows him the papers, and they kind of start talking about it under their breath.
Angus makes a show of just kind of deep sighing, and he says, if you'd like to inspect our cabbages, you're welcome to, sir. I've got to get back home before it gets dark. I'd like to sell my cabbages and get out of here.
James will pick up a cabbage and just start biting out of the side of it, just to make himself look more odd and out of place. Like he may really be slow.
And Angus will reach back and bat it out of his hands. And say, don't be eating the merchandise, you idiot. Good lord.
Sorry, sir.
He returns and hands over the pass back to James. He's like, keep this one close. Don't want any miscreants walking around the city.
Macduff says, I don't think I'll bring him next time.
Good idea. And he just kind of waves you through.
And he kind of looks back pointedly, like you've disappointed me so greatly, that kind of look, and shakes his head, and then he just kind of tips his hat again to the soldier and drives on.
Mm-hmm. So the three of you kind of you go through the they updated the hotkey. It's annoying. You head into the city. Yay. That leaves Bart and Elijah, who come up with the cart, and the two redcoats are standing there, and they look at each other. One of them says, more fucking cabbages.
More cabbages.
Bart kind of stops the horses and tips his hat. Cabbages, eh? Not a fan?
Strange to see so many cabbages. You know those two in front of you, or three, I should say?
They got cabbages too.
Well, they are in season.
We're not going to get a good price today.
Oh, you better run into town, Elijah.
We got to beat them there.
You gotta beat them. I wonder who it is. I wonder if it's this. Is it the Ripley brothers? It's the Ripley brothers. Are they ahead of us?
Don't think their name were Ripley. Here, hand me your pass.
Thank God he and Elijah quickly hand it to him.
Wickens hands it his as well.
We must hurry to get there, to get to the market before them.
Always price gouging. Always losing out to the Ripleys.
Those damn Ripleys.
All right, go ahead and.
They're loyalists, by the way. Those Ripleys.
Lawyers?
They're not loyalists. No, they're rebels.
And they
Those
kind of look at
Ripleys.
each other like, "Who is this Ripley?" And they kind of seem very interested and look at your name and then look at you.
They have a farm by us, but by golly, do they support that Continental Army?
Where's your farm?
About 20 minutes north of here.
20 minutes north. What town are you in? You can do New York geography.
Oh, good Lord Jesus.
All right. I'm on the part of myself, Elijah here. He's a little slow, a little quick of the tongue. Speaks before he thinks, and then I'll roll it.
Yeah, you can roll it.
New York geography.
Mm-hmm.
Skills. All right, here we go.
Yeah, you should have.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
That's the same thing as me, so we're good.
So you give a location, and one of them brings out a pad, and the other, one of them brings out a pad and begins to write down the name of this. And you said the Ripleys. What were the names?
yes, Jonas and Ed Ripley. Father is Tim.
Don't forget about the brother Jameson.
Oh, Jameson.
That sounds a little good.
He writes all that down, and he's like, "And your name's Bart Wickens and Elijah Jones." And he kind of writes
Indeed.
that. Well,
There isn't a reward for tournament, then, is there?
we'll see. Go ahead and roll. Anybody got fast talk?
I might, actually. Let's see here.
That is a big fat negative for me.
Nope. I'm a good carouser, but I'm not a good fast talker.
They seem to have all the info. They're kind of happy with that information, and they nod and they're like, "Very well. We'll check out these Ripley brothers. You live in that town, you said?
Just outside.
Dorchester. Very well."
Bart gets ready to spur the horses first. Come on, Elijah. Last thing I know, he plowed your sister. Remember that?
Oh. I tell ya. Well, thank you, good sirs. I hope your day is uneventful here.
Yes.
And they spur the horses forward, and as they do so, the cabbages shimmy in the back.
And they look at each other, and then they go to the next person in line. And you empty out into the streets of New York. Give me 2 seconds here.
I think I'm ready to give up the spy business and just try to sell cabbages. Make my fortune that way.
As they roll in, Bart's kind of talking to Elijah and says, "I think we did well. That bit about the Rippies, I think they really bought it, but I hope there's nobody named Ripley."
No, we owe him a great deal of gratitude if there is. All for the cause.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. I assume we meet up in the market.
Yep, you meet up in the market. Your 2 wagons
and
full
I'll
of
ask
cabbage.
how your passage went. Was there any incident?
Not at all.
Good.
Although if there's anybody named Ripley anywhere 20 minutes north of here, they're pretty much screwed.
And Macduff says, and why would that be?
No, they're damn rebels.
Water under the bridge, Macduff. Water under the bridge.
You sowed him down the river.
For King George.
Alright. Well, Mademoiselle Bureau, did I get that right?
You'll do it this time?
I'm trying to listen to your accent. Where should we go?
Well, maybe before anything, we should probably plan lodging in the city. So I will see if I can get in contact with someone I know to see if we can get somewhere to sleep.
All right.
So, 1 second, sorry.
Perhaps we should stay at different places.
If we can find different places,
Well,
then...
that's up to the lady to decide for us. But keep in mind, the more people we have to come in contact with, the more opportunity for betrayal.
Mr. Watkins, do you know anyone within the city, or do you not have any more contacts here?
I know of a place.
Oh, you do?
I do.
And may I ask what it is?
Well, there's a distant cousin of mine, his brother's sister, and their aunt has a cousin who lives down here.
And where
do you
do
think
their loyalties lie, Mr. Jones?
Oh, to Vermont, of course.
Naturally, to Vermont.
There are two Vermonts at present, Mr. Jones. Which Vermont do they support?
Oh, the Republic of Vermont, that is.
So you're in this, the market is not all that crowded, it being Sunday. There are a few things here or there. There's a man kind of eyeing you from a distance. He kind of begins to walk over.
I'll also be looking around like I'm trying to decide maybe where to set up to sell.
Yeah. So man walks over and he's like, "Hello there, friends. Selling some cabbages today on a Sunday. Odd day to come into town."
Macduff will brighten up. And he said, "An odd day to come into town makes for less competition, don't it now, sir?"
Perhaps.
And he shows the cabbages and he says, "Partial to cabbages, are you, sir? We have some fine ones."
Not me personally, but I might know someone.
Well, have a gander, and he'll pick up what he imagines would be the nicest looking cabbage he has in the lot, and hold it out to him.
He takes it. "No maggots in your cabbages?"
With pride. And he says, "You offend me, sir. I wouldn't dare sell maggots to a fine gentleman like yourself."
He kind of looks and kind of eyes the woman for a moment, then looks at, "Where are you going to set up? I'll have my friend come look at your stock."
Excellent. Well, that's what I was deciding right now. We have lots to choose from. As you say, it's a Sunday. Not much competition. So, he says, "Why don't you set up over there?" He turns to James and says, "Why don't you set up over there?"
I so will.
Somewhere like on a corner where it looks like we'd get more traffic.
Okay, James sets off to find the best corner. Would I have to make like an observation roll or just?
No.
No, I pointed you to just a likely.
Okay, perfect.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
We're not really gonna sell them for too long.
Right. Okay, so James sets off and begins unloading some of the goods and setting up a I guess a small food stand.
Yeah, there's stands already set up for people to basically. They're like kind of lean-tos is probably not a correct depiction, but basically awnings somewhat, and you can sell out your wagon. That's
We're just selling right out of the wagon. Yeah, we don't really have a choice.
Okay.
Nothing fancy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be back soon. And he kind of nods.
I look
to the
forward
woman.
to remaking your acquaintance.
And that's exactly. I was going to have her do something, but
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say this would be a good time for the two of you to go off and make arrangements while the three of us remain here and sell cabbages. My thought
Bart.
is
Bart
that
and Michelle.
is that Bart. No. Who said they had a cousin? That was Elijah, right?
mm-hmm.
My plan is to, my thought and rather is to make sure that Michelle or Bart is with each group at any time, so that there's not a group that doesn't have a native person who knows their way around in case something happens. So Elijah and Mademoiselle Bureau would go and agree on a place, since they both seem to have thoughts on where we might set up shop.
Mm-hmm. Once she's back, I'll have her roll something. We can just take like a 2-minute break here. Just stretch, drink, whatever.
Yep. No one said anything about yawns.
Yeah, that was me.
So Macduff does ask Wickens if he still has any contacts in the city. Whether he is. Will he be recognized, and if so, is that a good thing or a bad thing, do you imagine?
So I need to make a roll for that.
No.
Sure.
Well, yeah, you do not have any contacts. That would be an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it was some time ago that I was scared out, or at least forced out of the city. Bart says. It was a run-in with a redcoat, coming to my shop, helping them to the finest cuts of meat, not paying but half what the common man did. See, it's the king's right. Well, I had enough of that, and fisticuffs broke out, and it was either pay the king's price or flee the city. So I left. No friends behind, no wife, no family. I know my way around, have some old friends here perhaps, but they're the kind of friends you can find in the bars and alleys and the taverns off of Main Street. I don't know, I'm certainly not the highfalutin kind that
As long as your presence
Mademoiselle.
won't create a stir, Mr. Wickens, that's what I'm mostly concerned about.
Not unless we run across someone named Ripley. A band of redcoats that used to terrorize my shop front.
It appears that Michelle is back.
Those Ripleys.
So Michelle, your likely best contact is a lawyer who was friends with your husband, named Matthew Rose, or I'm sorry, Rufus Davis. And Mr. Davis probably was your friend's or your husband's best friend, and he likely has the clout and the most likely to help you. Right? He likes you. He likes your husband, or did, and he has some political influence, and whatnot in the city. He has a office not too far away.
So, in case you missed, I requested that you and Mr. Jones, between the two of you, since you both have contacts or ideas where we might set up our headquarters, that you two go and reconnoiter and decide where we might best do that, agree between yourselves. And I'll say, Mr. Jones, I'm entrusting the lady to your care. Don't disappoint me.
Oh, I'd never disappoint anybody.
So,
And wink.
He frowns at that wink. Doesn't seem to be terribly receptive of the wink, but but says nothing.
so Mr. Jones, I do have a contact within the city that maybe we can go visit. Will it just be the two of us, or is everyone else staying behind?
Just the two of you.
All
So
right.
we have cabbages to sell. It'd be best if we appear to be doing what we came here to do.
Sounds like a plan.
Don't let those rip us off, Bart.
All right, Mr. Jones, shall we?
Oh, we shall.
All right.
And with that, he'll offer an elbow.
She'll take the elbow and they'll start walking. She'll start guiding him towards her contact. And on the way, she'll kind of explain. So, I have a friend within the city. His name is Rufus Davis. I am sure he can get us a place to stay, as he was a good friend of my husband's, and well, he's a good friend of both of us.
Well, that sounds like a mighty great plan.
Do you want to speak to your cousins afterwards, or your cousins' aunts, or however the relationship is?
my cousin's brother, sister, aunts, nephew, cousin.
Oui.
Well, I don't reckon that we may not run into him, but if we do, we wouldn't mind stop and saying hello.
Well, this is not a mission of pleasantries, but if you feel, sir, that saying hello to your cousins is important to the mission, then maybe we can make time.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be that important. They're not the well-off types that'd be able to get us information we need.
I think so. And with that, they head off to the lawyer, unless he's
Right.
anything else to say.
You find his office, and the sign's hanging on the door, Rufus Davis, Esquire. There's a... It is in the middle of the day, but you do see a candle burning inside of a lamp, light of a lamp, hooded lamp inside.
She will gently kind of knock on the door there.
And you're not surprised to see Mr. Davis kind of waddling towards the door. He's a short, balding man, and kind of like looks through the window, very surprised to see your face, and opens the door, and he's like, "Michelle?"
Ah, bonjour, Rufus. It is nice to see you again.
He kind of like looks over his shoulder. He's like, "What are you doing here?"
I have come into New York to visit with some of my acquaintances, and just thought I'd stop in and say hello.
Is that safe?
Debatable.
He kind of furrows his brow and looks at Elijah. Well, come in.
Might as well duff his cap and brush stuff off before he answers.
And Michelle will enter as well.
You notice that his his office looks very different from the last time you saw it. It looks threadbare and like he doesn't have too many clientele these days. And he kind of moves over to his desk and leans to the side of it. And he's like, "Now what is all this? You left over a year ago."
I know I am great.
But barely a word.
Yes, it was not a good time for me. I was very distraught at the time. I deeply apologize for not saying goodbye.
Well, it can't be helped now. What can I do for you? Do you need something?
I do, my friend. I also see that you may need something. I see that you do not have very many, unfortunately, clientele here. I wonder why.
I think we all know why. Don't have any people that I can defend against government. No one wants to take any cases, and, well, I'm not inclined to do so myself. Quite honestly, I don't want to be the one being tried, if you know what I mean.
I very much understand. It must be extremely upsetting for you not to be able to practice as before, no?
Well, of course.
Of course. So, my question, of course, as I said, some of my compatriots, we have come into the city for a little while now, and we do need a place to stay for just a little while. I was wondering if you could help about that.
Well, this is where I'm living these days, in my office. You and your friend here, and he looks over Elijah. What is your name, son?
Oh, my name's Elijah.
A bit improper, isn't it, Michelle?
Unfortunately, he does not fully know how to be proper. His full name is Elisha Jones there. Please properly introduce yourself, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, good sir. My name is Elijah Jones. It is a pleasure to meet your acquaintance.
He puts his fingers on the bridge of his nose and says, "That's not what I meant, young lady. Why are you bringing a young man into my office and asking that you could stay here? I don't mean to get in anyone's business, but are you remarried and I do not know? Then I would offer you an apology."
Of course not. I have no intention of remarrying, of course. My first husband was all I needed in my life, as you know. And she kind of looks a little bit sad there.
Yeah, and he's kind of looking for an explanation from you.
Yes. My apologies. Well, we are just looking to stay in town for a few days. We have some business to conduct, and unfortunately, I am not at liberty to disclose at this point. But let me just say, for sure, it will be beneficial to your future.
Will it?
Career. Oh, it will.
Roll me a fast talk.
Oh.
You better hope he thinks so.
Normally I would give you a benefit, but he is very wary of that.
Rufus feeling the rope around his neck about this time.
Yes.
I got it.
Ah!
Well, my dear, I suppose I couldn't quite refuse a lady coming to my door looking for a place to stay. He kind of scratches the back of his head. You and Mr. Jones can stay here, I suppose.
Will you be... you said you are sleeping here as well, too, yes?
I can get a place to stay and give you your privacy if that's what you want. And he looks kind of a little bit dismayed by that.
Oh no, you.
I'm sure he does.
I am very sorry. You misunderstand me. It is. She looks kind of over at Elijah and a little bit of
Elijah will speak up, but we'll be delighted, good sir. I appreciate it.
Takes a deep
And-
breath and he says,
As he puts his arm around Michelle. Yeah.
softly touches her side.
Time for the betting ritual.
Oh my.
Rufus says, well, very well, my dear. I'll be at the Cortigan Hotel, I suppose. And he kind of like turns and starts gathering a couple books and
My.
is there anything else you need besides a flop house?
Actually, I was wondering if I could do anything for you since you are letting us stay here so kindly.
Nothing to be done. I just need people to defend, so I have money for my coffers.
We might be providing that soon enough.
You say people to defend, you say?
Yes, I'm a lawyer, Mr. Jones.
Are you
What
a
do you
good
do?
one?
What is your profession? You look like a laborer. And he kind of looks at Michelle like, what? Who is this guy?
Oh, are we all laborers under the good King George?
Uh-huh. Looking
But I'm a
bit
traveler.
suspicious.
I'm a
Traveler?
Yep.
From
I've been-
where, good sir?
Oh, from all over. New York, Vermont.
He's a vagabond. He's a vagabond.
You are so helping our case here.
He looks to Michelle and says, and where did you meet Mr. Jones, if I might ask?
I actually, I met him at a party up north.
Oh,
Not that kind of party. What do you take me for, Rufus?
no. How far north?
Not that far.
He kind of takes a deep breath. He's like, don't worry about it. Just tell me when I can come back.
I will. I very much appreciate your hospitality. And she'll kind of go over and basically kiss both his cheeks.
Laz will shoot him a look.
Yeah, he appears to be very dismayed by this whole situation. He's like
Yeah, wait till you meet the three other guys.
Harlot!
and
Oh my.
he takes his leave.
You are sacrificing for the rebellion, my lady.
And he'll look at Michelle. Sorry for being too forward.
It is okay. I do not expect you to know the ways of civility.
Well, I just figured it'd be better him gone sooner than later.
He was leaving, but let's say no more to that. We should let the others know that we now have a place to stay for now.
That should be delightful. Should I go tell him and you can stay here, or do you want to go with?
I will set up the location if you would like to confer with the gentleman, as it might be improper to keep seeing me outside with a bunch of men.
Well, that sounds delightful.
I will figure out something for food.
I have no doubt in your prowess for the food. If not, we always got cabbage.
I can make cabbage soup.
There we go. I'll make sure we bring a couple heads.
Perfect.
And then for now, I shall fare you adieu.
Adieu.
And he'll walk out
Okay.
and head towards the group.
All right. You find them there selling cabbage, very unsuccessfully so far.
Has that man's agent returned by any chance?
He has not.
Ripes. What's your report, Mr. Jones?
Elijah will go over, grab a couple of heads of cabbage, throw them in a little satchel. Well, we have acquired a place to stay. Although, it's going to be a unique situation if the gentleman walks in and there's a bunch of guys. However, he doesn't worry me much. He's an attorney, so...
Unique in what manner exactly?
Angus, you see his mind must be turning, imagining the introduction that must...
Well, James, it's a simple matter of do you have any female relatives?
I do indeed.
Well, imagine 3 guys staying with your female relative all by themselves.
Well, that's why they make those sewing bags. They stitch them for when they sleep at night.
And don't forget to drink the black tea. Anyways, may I suggest that we try to offload these as fast as possible so we can go? I grabbed a couple heads of cabbage for our meal tonight.
I'll start offering the cabbages at cut rate.
Yeah. So after a couple hours of selling your cabbage...
And if I have to, when no one's looking, I'm going to ditch some cabbages down an alley.
Yeah.
The poor will enjoy that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're able to get rid of the cabbages one way or another in a couple hours.
Good, this honest work is not for me.
Shall we buy some meat to go with this cabbage later in the night?
Meat?
Meat.
I doubt it. Not for what you made.
We will dine on cabbages, Mr. Jones. Or is it Mr. Matthews? No, Mr. Jones.
You heading back to the
Yes,
office?
lead on.
Elijah will show them the way.
So you head back to the office and you see the lantern inside and Michelle seated in there, waiting.
Should I roll for housekeeping?
Sure.
That must be a skill.
It
GURPS
is.
after
No,
all.
it is.
Yeah.
Roll
I've
for
got this-
housekeeping.
Roll for housekeeping.
And you
woman.
come in
Oh,
and
good
the
Lord.
office is
Housekeeping.
in a lot better shape than when Elijah left. And go ahead and roll for cooking while you're at it.
Oh,
should
sweet,
have put
okay.
points in housekeeping. Damn it.
Oh no.
So later on, she makes you cabbage stew. And this cabbage soup is,
Well, we
Some-
sold all our best cabbages. And
yeah, some of the worst
all
cabbage.
All we're left was ones that.
The maggot cabbages.
Yeah, some of the worst cabbage soup you've ever had. And
Yeah. And
Angus doesn't complain. He's freaking Irish. It's like
Bard's
it's
drinking
food.
the soup.
Goes in your stomach.
yeah,
Keeps
He
you
says
Um,
something about no maggots in a cabbage and lifts up a spoon. And there's one wriggling around and tosses it over his shoulder.
Elijah will eat the maggots and say how delightful it is.
there are no maggots, but it is not very good. And the 5 of you are now stuck, kind of stuffed in this small office space.
and farting all night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cabbage. And
Bard kind of
mhm.
says, that reminds me of a verse in the good book, James 14:14. Man cannot live on bread alone, but he can live on cabbage soup and ale. He kind of brings up the idea of maybe going around and checking out the local pubs to see if there's any rumors around of
Intelligence gathering.
a little intelligence gathering. So this guy's known to be frequenting theaters, pubs, a bit of a
Mhm.
carouser. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And as you kind of consider what to do next, the screen fades to black, and that is it for tonight.
Oh.
All right.